Welcome back, everyone, to Worlds Beyond with Cam and Ron.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
We are excited today to be talking about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, the sequel to Into the Spider-Verse.
I know, it's hard getting all these Spider-Verse names right, because the next one is Beyond the Spider-Verse, so I know I'm going to get all three of them mixed up at some point.
When the first one came out, I remember being skeptical. A, because it was Sony. B, because, I love the MCU movies, but how is this going to be? Some of the voice talent looked cool. I think I did not see it in the theater. I rented it on demand and really, really enjoyed it. And then I watched it a couple more times and enjoyed it even more on subsequent watches. So was actually definitely anticipating this one.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember, when did that last one come out? Was it it was pre-pandemic, right? I can't even distinguish
I feel
anymore.
like it came out right before lockdown, and but I remember, I think I watched it during lockdown.
Right. I'm trying to remember. It might have even been a year or so before that. I think I saw it in the theater, though. By the time I had seen it, though, everyone had hyped it up so much. And I mean, I appreciate it and love what they were going for in that movie, and I think it's really good. But to me, I don't think it quite lived up to the huge crazy hype that everyone was talking about.
Right.
And this one, just to get right into it, it did, for me at least. So I guess I had the benefit of seeing it. I guess it was opening weekend or maybe a week after it had come out that we saw it. I think that helps, but I loved it.
Yeah, it was great. So your opening thought is believe the hype?
Yeah, especially for this one. I think maybe the hype killed the last one a little bit for me. Like I said, I love it and I think it's awesome. I understand why it's so hyped, but I think I was expecting, especially being familiar with the comics and multiverse already, I think that was very much people's introduction to that, even before Loki and Kang and everything else. So I think that's why everyone was going so crazy for it, when to a lot of people it was already a concept that we were relatively familiar with. But this one, I think, just takes it in a new direction and very exciting direction, and I just loved what they did with it.
Just to finish off on the first one, I think for mainstream cinema audiences, I think there was two things working against it. One, it was kind of a proof of concept thing, although it's not technically the MCU, taking this Marvel thing to a mainstream animated film going to work, number one. And then another section of the audience thinking, oh, this is going to be a kids Marvel movie, So I think I definitely had those two thoughts in my head to varying degrees when I saw the first one. So I think once people saw, okay, obviously this is a family movie, but it's got plenty of elements that people who like MCU movies would enjoy. And so I think now people were primed for this one.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Out. So I guess
I think the last one was kind of a sleeper hit. I think it did really well, but maybe not as well as some of the live action Spider-Mans did. But then I think this one is doing really good numbers.
Yeah, I think it's just under 400 million worldwide as of a couple of days ago. So that's very good. I think it beat the overall US-Canada gross for the last one in the first 12 days.
Wow, yeah. Well, it just shows. I think people are still really craving quality Marvel content in general.
Quality Marvel content.
Keyword there being quality.
Yeah. So yeah, my overall reaction, I loved it. I know we're going to get into more details. I love the way it started. I love that they focused on Gwen's story to start out with, and then sort of backed into Miles. Just keeping to overall reactions. My overall reactions was awesome, amazing, very deeply touching at times, family story. And just that kind of element to it. Great action, great, amazing stuff. Felt it definitely was a little long. And there were some points that were a little bit like sensory overload for me during that, but we'll get into that. The overall impact it had on me far outweighed any reservations that we'll get into in a little bit
of
detail.
Yeah, definitely. I guess just to get right into it, I agree. I loved the opening and the focus on Gwen. I can't really remember how much of her story they hinted at in the first one. It's been a little bit since I've seen it. Kind of go to that length point. There was almost two beginnings, the beginning with Gwen and then beginning with Miles, but then obviously it came together. I was just surprised at how lengthy the beginning was. They really get into family and friend drama and teen angst and that sort of thing, and it takes, I guess I don't really say this in a critical way, but it does take a little while to actually get going and seeing where the story is going to lead, but it just makes all the action and everything that happens later so much more impactful.
I always think that's a cool thing when you can take one of the other key characters. It's just like Winter Soldier, where, Black Widow played such a huge role in that movie, and you kind of weren't expecting how much of a, co-starring movie that really was, and that's one of the things that made it so great. And I think they did a similar thing here. So I guess in terms of like the whole length thing, in different, it was like in different spots, and I'll talk about that. But since we're on this subject of the opening, I thought where we got such a detailed opening with Gwen Stacy's character that once they got to Miles, that would have been a little bit quicker, but it was just as lengthy.
It was, I mean, obviously a lot of it was very important for the overall story, but I guess some of it seemed a little bit like a retread of the previous one, just in terms of the overall kind of family drama aspect. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it was all great.
So what are your other, particularly whether they be story points or production points, what are your biggest standouts?
The big thing would be the animation, just how vibrant and expressive it is, and it's not quite 2D, it's not quite 3D, it's like kind of in the middle. That's the big draw for me for these films, just because it's so different from any other animated film out there, and I love 2D animation, so the fact that it's at least trying to replicate that, I don't think it's full 3D, but it does seem like they incorporate a lot of that element, those kind of elements into it, so I love that.
Obviously, technically, I'm not equipped to speak that much about the animation. What I'll say I love is, obviously, it's just over the top, just incredibly dynamic animation, but I love how they seamlessly blend so many distinctly different styles,
right? Yeah,
of animation. I mean, there's maybe whatever you want to call the sort of signature or the base style, which is and I don't even know what to call it, but there's that. Then they'll have full on anime style. They'll have
right, yeah,
all those. Then the Hobie character, Spider-Punk, like I don't even know what you call that animation where he was like sort of translucent and had all this stuff going on inside his outline of his body and everything else. And then they did Legos, they did the 1960s cartoons, they did just blending all those styles.
Yeah, I forgot about that Lego segment. That was great. Apparently that was done by a 14-year-old kid.
It was great. It was cool.
So yeah, no, that's awesome. But yeah, but I guess to that point, the Lego was a great reference. There was a lot of references to greater Spider-Man media, the MCU, previous Spider-Man films, and I think I guess I don't want to get too much into that because it's not super plot related, really, in their fun cameos. But that's the other big thing for me, is just how much of the other Spider-Man we saw I thought was really cool. This one was a lot darker and more serious and not as funny. There were the moments that were funny, I thought were very funny, but I mean, it was really very much a straight drama, even I would say even more so than the last one. It just felt like so much more weighty than a typical animated film.
Yeah, definitely higher stakes. Yeah, the humor that is there, I mean, obviously there's plenty of it. Most of the one-liners hit really well with the different characters, because I mean, you just have so many good straight actors and comedic actors in the film. So I think we haven't really gotten into any spoilers per se, but I want to talk about the end of the film and how it ended. So for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, maybe take a pause. But what did you think overall of the sort of surprise cliffhanger ending? It's like, I think I figured out that there was going to be a cliffhanger ending maybe like 2 or 3 minutes before it actually happened. I said, okay, this has been going on, the movie had been going on for quite a while.
Right, yeah.
And then she was just gathering this thing, and Miles was in that predicament, and when he went back to the wrong version of his Earth. And so I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be a cliffhanger. And then boom, there it was.
Right. Yeah, well, I'm kind of surprised because a lot of people are saying they didn't know it was going to be a two-parter, but I remember at the end of the first trailer it said part 1. But that was the only time I'd seen it, so they didn't really make a big deal out of it being a part 1, but I knew going in, obviously, that it was going to be end on a cliffhanger. I wasn't sure just how much it was going to end on a cliffhanger, but then I feel like the end is where I kind of felt the length. I felt like there was a whole bunch of different endings, and each time I was like, all right, so this is the ending and how they're going to end it, and then it, like, the music swelled, and then it went on a whole another 20 minutes. I feel like at any point in after the 2 hour mark, you could have ended it with a cliffhanger and then put the remaining 20-30 minutes in the other film. but maybe they wanted this one to be the longest, and the next one won't be as long for that reason. But
yeah, maybe the next one will just be sort of the slam bang,
right?
Rescue and final figuring out of what they're going to do,
which would be interesting. But yeah, no, so much happened at the end. So Miles is stuck in a different universe where there's an evil version of himself, and
no Spider-Man.
No Spider-Man. So, and then Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099, is after him, and then meanwhile Gwen has rounded up all the other Spider-Men to try to find him. Yeah, no, I think that's a great ending. I'm interested in seeing. And then there's the whole Spot situation too. He's kind of the overall bad guy. I have a feeling Miguel O'Hara's character will eventually, become good, and they'll find some way to overpower the Spot character in the next one. But I'd be interested in seeing just how much story they have left to tell.
Yeah, or placate that Spot character and get him to like relinquish whatever he's doing,
right?
Or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, and it was interesting at the end that Gwen, when she decides screw it, she's gonna save Miles and not worry about the multiverse, she assembles all of the original team, if you will, from the first film.
Mm-hmm.
Many of those characters hadn't appeared yet.
Right.
Yeah, or only briefly, and we got all these new. Because God, the number of new Spider people.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I
mean, there's a whole bunch of new main characters that are followed, and then obviously at the end there's just thousands of Spider-Men, just every kind of Spider-Man you could think of.
And so that's one of the points for me that was both entertaining and like, just cool about it, but also it just teetered between, oh my god, all these spider people, that's so crazy, that's so cool, to the point where I was like, oh, okay, enough with the extra, with the billions of spiders. So there was a balance there where like it just about got to the point where I was like, okay, enough with the additional spider people, we get it.
It seems like they've rounded out that main team now, and it's going to be probably more focused on them in the next film.
So if I could get into like some of the points where I felt the length, it was obviously that opening sequence that we've already talked about, the dual sort of opening vignettes that we get on both Gwen and Miles. And then what was interesting was that we got that, like, we stopped in the story and then went into the background of each new Spider character of the main ones. You got the Oscar Isaac Spider-Man 2029, it was awesome. The Spider-Man India, he was hilarious.
Yeah, he was great.
But like the stopping for everybody's backstory, I got to be a little bit crazy. Couple of Miles' initial battles with the Spot, like they would go into these incredible action sequences and just the swinging Spider-Man typical action that, just him and Gwen swinging around New York, everything. I felt like they just milked all of those scenes just a few beats too long.
Oh,
yeah, I think if you collectively took all of those scenes where it was one of those extended battle action scenes, spinning, going crazy, and you just took a few beats off of all of those scenes, to me, you would have had a much tighter movie.
Yeah, I think that kind of ties into my feelings about it going on just a bit too long, especially towards the end. And yeah, a lot of those action sequences are just so... I mean, I know that apparently they spent like 4 years animating the chase scene with all the Spider-Men towards the end.
Oh yeah, that was crazy.
I have a feeling they wanted to show as much of their work as possible, kind of stuff. But yeah, so I'm interested in seeing... I mean, I guess the length has not had any real issue on the effect on the word of mouth or anything like that. People seem to love it. But I'd be interested in seeing how long the next one is.
And like I said, I have no complaints. I just, no complaints overall. But I just, you have that natural sort of clock and that natural sort of like attention span thing as you're sitting and experiencing a film. And, there were several of those action scenes and some of those background scenes where I was like, my timer was going off. Okay, it's time to move on to the next.
I'm going to be seeing it again tonight, so I'm interested in seeing if it still feels a little bit long to me, or if it'll go by a little bit faster now that I know what to expect. So
that is a huge point. That's a huge point, because there's been many films that we've covered recently that, like, the first time you see it, because you don't know, either because you have expectations or because you don't know what's going to happen next, your body or your senses can get impatient for, okay, where are we going? Where are we going? What's happening next? And then once you know, and you sit back and you're just, sometimes the second watch of a film can be the sort of definitive one, because now all your expectations are out of the way and you're just really just kind of honing in on the story and the experience. So yeah, I'll be curious what you think after you see it again tonight.
But one thing that is nice is that there are no post-credit scenes, so you don't also have to sit through all of the credits again.
That was a relief, actually.
So that's a nice little kind of expectation subversion, not doing a post-credit scene. I can't remember if the last one did. I think it did, just from my recollection, but I can't remember what it actually is.
Yeah.
I think it was kind of throwaway. I don't think it was anything super major.
Any final thoughts on this one?
Not really. I mean, I loved pretty much all of it, aside from the fact that it felt a little bit long. I don't really have any big negatives other than that.
No.
I thought it was great. Definitely one of the better superhero films that we've seen, one of the better Marvel films that we've seen recently. So that was a nice breath of fresh air. Yeah,
I know it's like, I know it's 96-ish on Rotten Tomatoes and 9 out of 10 on IMDb. I think, and it's, you hear words like, I've stayed away from too many reviews. Now I'll start to watch them.
Right.
Now that we've done our recap. But, you hear the words universal, just everybody just seems to really like this one. And I like the fact, and you kind of alluded to this at the beginning of our talk, this should push the bar up and raise the bar for the MCU and other superhero movies to be like, okay, we got to get back to this level of quality and impact if you want people to come and see these films.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to see what's the next MCU coming up. Is it Secret Invasion?
Yeah, I'm very excited. We've talked about this before. I'm like super excited about this one.
Yeah, fingers crossed. It has potential to be awesome.
Yeah, great cast. I love all the Nick Fury stories. I love the ones that, again, referencing back to Winter Soldier, the ones that take this sort of espionage tack usually are pretty good. So really excited to see what they do with it. And then Loki's in the fall sometime, I think, or
I guess the next movie is Marvel's. Is that it?
Yeah, Marvel's is the next movie.
And that I guess that will kind of tie into Secret Invasion too.
It will, yeah, definitely. And I think it's actually kind of a breath of fresh air to have had what was Quantumania, which was obviously somewhat of a disappointment. And then Guardians was awesome. And then I'm glad there's not another Marvel movie for 6 months, especially where we've got the TV projects.
Yeah, we've been so overloaded with everything MCU. It's nice that they're slowing down a bit. I think that is a valid criticism that they listen to.
Yep, I wouldn't mind if they stuck in another Werewolf by Night, though.
Like I know, or something like that, yeah.
One-off short little thing. And what do you think? Have you heard I don't know whether it's a controversy or not, but like the whole idea that supposedly, and I think it's October, supposedly Echo is going to be Disney's experiment with releasing all
at once?
Episodes at once.
Oh yeah, I mean that'll be. I prefer that. Not to say that I'm actually not a huge binger. I usually just watch 1 or 2 episodes at a time, but I just prefer that just to be able to have that freedom, because sometimes I do want to watch. And sometimes they're so short that it's like they're so unsubstantial. I almost feel like I didn't watch anything. So,
right.
I mean, that's kind of a criticism of the content itself too. But I'm interested in seeing how that works for them, and hopefully they'll continue to do it.
Well, what I've read is that that whole thing is in conjunction with these rumors that supposedly Feige thinks it's not that good.
So he just wants to dump it.
he wants to dump it out there, get all the negative reaction out of the way quickly, and move on. Supposedly, it was almost completely reshot after they watched the initial cut of it or something like that.
Huh.
So,
I haven't really heard too much about it, but I like that character, so it would suck if it sucked.
Yeah. And then Daredevil's next year, right?
Yeah, that they, I think they have a lot riding on that, because I know a lot of people that don't really like the MCU that love Daredevil, and they're not. I think it's an uphill battle for those people because they're not almost the inclusion of it in the MCU is like makes it worse for them, so it's going to be a hard sell, I feel like.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
But
non-star. Oh, God.
I was just going to say I loved his inclusion in She-Hulk, so I hope they continue that, but maybe with a little bit darker edge.
Yes, definitely. I love what they did with his character in She-Hulk. Non-MCU, I think we've got a couple of Star Wars series coming.
Oh yeah, Ahsoka's coming out sooner than I expected. I'm almost towards the end, or to the point of giving up on Star Wars at this point. Just aside from Andor, everything else has been so disappointing, and I don't know. Everything from Ahsoka has looked good so far, but it's all trailer moments, not like the actual. Who knows how? Like all the Mandalorian trailer stuff looked great, but I didn't even watch the third season because it didn't look all. The plot seemed stupid, but the visuals and stuff look great. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah. I guess we kind of didn't finish up on Mandalorian. I did end up finishing it, and it finished out okay. The episodes were a little bit up. I mean, some of them, the bad ones, were really bad, and then it ended up okay. But overall, I think they should have just ended it after the second season.
Yeah, it feels like they're just cranking it out because there's a huge amount of people that will just watch it because it's Star Wars. It doesn't even matter.
Right.
So,
what's interesting,
kind of a bummer.
Yeah, what's interesting about Ahsoka is that it really is whatever fifth, sixth season of Rebels, the animated show. So, and I wonder, so far by the reactions from it, but I mean, I wonder a lot of the casual sort of Star Wars fans are going to be like, who are these people,
I know, yeah, that's the other thing I'm curious about, because there's so much of this is built off of Rebels and Clone Wars and stuff, and a lot of that isn't as well known as some of the other Star Wars stuff.
I guess the same was true of Ahsoka when they introduced her in Mandalorian. I mean, if you hadn't watched Clone Wars Rebels, you wouldn't know who she is.
Yeah. I guess I didn't really see a whole lot of people talking one way or the other about that.
And then what else is coming out? I don't know.
I mean, yeah, definitely too much to even review, but there's definitely a lot of great stuff on the horizon I'm looking forward to.
Yes, I'm looking forward to talking about it with you all. I will give my end of episode plug again for Lockwood & Co. The books and the show. Desperately trying to get that show saved by another streamer, because obviously Netflix doesn't look like they canceled it, and I doubt they'll change their decision on that, but just can't say enough what a great IP that is. Just great books. Excellent. One of the best book adaptations I've ever seen. Watch it if you haven't watched it, and join us in our fight to get that show picked up by somebody else and continued.
Absolutely. And 2 thumbs up on Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, this one is called, right?
Got it. Yep, 2 very enthusiastic thumbs up for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. All right, until next time, folks, thanks for listening.
And yeah, we'll see you on the next one.